ready for takeoff.
He's Metz. He's Tass. It's the Metzger Tassoul Show.
Hello, Mr. Shane.
Well, hello. How are you?
Hey, Happy New Year, pal.
Happy New Year, pal. It's past that time. Can't say that anymore after like the 8th of the month or something.
You can when it's the first show of the Metzger Tassoul Show of the year.
This is true. This is true. How are you?
Besides the lingering cough, I'm fantastic.
It's good. Good.
So I'd be
A
curious.
little nasal stuff, congestion.
Hold on. We got to, are we sharing to anyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's what? It's automatic. Brian, hey, in the new year, technology has exponentially changed and it's automatic. Since last year as well, I was corrected. So thank you, my producer here. But anyway, I would like to know, and I don't know, will I be able to see comments? Because I see 0 here. Oh, but I'd like to know, I heard a lot of people got this little, this bug, this flu thing that's going around. A lot of people had it over the holidays. I had it last week.
Not in Wisconsin. It's too cold.
Is it? Yeah, it's too cold. Can't survive.
That's right. It freezes. Yeah.
So I heard Tallahassee got like up to 4 inches of snow. Tallahassee, Florida.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
When's the last time that's happened?
I don't know, but one of the records was from 1895, and we like doubled that record.
Really?
Yeah. So anyway, so Tass, people aren't here to talk about the weather.
No.
So
let's talk about politics. Old Trumpy Poo is in office officially. No, I'm teasing.
and then we're going to go into religion, and then we're going to
Right.
talk about upgrades and contracts in the martial arts schools.
That's right. Actually, funny story about that. Maybe a lesson for everybody. I pulled up yesterday. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. We're just trying to, this technology.
To see if anybody's on or not.
Okay, there we go. Now I can see some things here. All right, go ahead, Tass.
No, listen, regardless of your political view, right? I pulled up yesterday to pick up my truck. I had some work done on my truck, right? I had it ceramic coated and windows tinted. And when I pulled up, there was a big Trump sign in the window. And so I said to Gavin, who I was with, I said, do you want me to give this guy a little lesson in business? Like, you can be proud, you can do whatever, but do you realize that you're potentially repelling almost 50% of your business, right? Because those margins are always very thin. And I don't care if it's 10% or 20% or 30%. Like, I think you need every possible advantage that you can. And some may have a different view on that. Some may be like, no, that's my tribe and that's who I want to communicate with. And I don't want to communicate with. And listen, I guess I understand that as well. But at the same time, I just don't want things to get in the way or potentially stifle business, right? It would be like years ago, I had some instructors that wanted to open a second location, and we did a little satellite location, and they want to put a Bible verse up on the wall. And I said, look, it's not that I'm not religious. It's not that I, don't believe, but it's just not something that we do in business, right? So I think just a good audit of maybe taking a good peek and a good look at your school, number one. And if you're doing those things, or if you're posting on those things, just understand, not that you can't get new students, but you may be making things more difficult for yourself than you need to be. because you're doing those types of things, right? So just food for thought.
100%. Business is hard enough. Don't make it harder.
I know.
But look, today we're talking about is your martial arts school, or is this industry as a whole charging enough for the value that you provide? You want to know the biggest problem though that I've seen from visiting schools when I would travel around and visit schools and do school evaluations, which I haven't done that in a long time, but some of you, and here's the big thing, I think the theme for today is you got to own it. But you'll go to an event. You might come to our event. You might come to one of our seminars. You may have gone to the Super Show. You may have heard a speaker, and they talk about you got to charge, what you're worth. We charge $300 a month, for a student to train, and then you look at yourself and you think, man, I'm not charging near enough. And you say, you know what, I'm going to raise my rates. The problem is you're also not providing the value that some of these schools may be providing. And I've seen it. What does your facility look like? What does a customer get in your school? Do they just get to attend class twice a week, 3 times a week, every day? Is that what it is? What values do they get besides that? Because to pay, I'm making a point, everybody, but to pay $300 a month to do a glorified PE class for a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, that's what it appears to a non-martial arts family that's coming in and signing their child up, right? So what is the discipline like in the school? What is the culture like in the school? Do you do more than just the classes, right? Do we reward them for behavior at home, behavior at school? What are you doing for your adult students besides just teaching them the self-defense or your art for $200 a month, $150 a month, $100 a month, or even $80 a month, right? So you got to look at really the value that you provide. However, and then I'm going to throw it to you, Tass, you can't provide value to the masses unless you really understand what the masses want. The masses don't want martial arts training. They want to be tough, or they want to lose weight, or they want to get in shape, or they want to know how to defend themselves. Like what they want is the outcome of what they believe martial arts training will get them, right? And I like to reverse engineer things. I like to work backwards. So how can you keep people focused on their target as opposed to the process? Because the process for the majority of people gets boring, which is why people join gyms more than ever in January, because they set a New Year's resolution. Nobody sets a New Year's resolution of, I'm going to work out every day. It's typically, I'm going to get in better shape this year. I'm going to lose the weight that I've been wanting to lose. So they join a gym. But why is it also that they're already done with the gym by February, by month 2, right? And some of you will quote the stats and say, well, it's actually 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever it is. My point is why don't we have 100 million gyms in the United States with 360 million people in the United States? Because nobody goes. They join, but they quit. They don't go. Why? Right? So in a martial arts facility, we're not a gym. We're not a gym. The majority of you aren't working with 5,000 customers in a facility where they're really just a number. You're working with a couple hundred people, and you got to treat them like individual clients and really cater to their wants and their needs. If you do that, now you can start charging whatever you want to charge. All right, Tass, back to you.
So it's interesting that you brought up the gym, right? I think
I'm just going to shut the door.
Okay, good. So, yeah. I think there's this paradox that may exist. And let me explain. So if some of you may be familiar with Lifetime Gym or Lifetime Fitness, right? Lifetime Fitness is, I don't know, $150 or $200 a month to join a Lifetime Fitness. Well, how is it they can justify $150 to $200 per month? Well, if you've ever been to one of their facilities, the facility does the selling for the salesperson, right? So if you go to a Planet Fitness and you're like, they're trying to sell you a $150 gym membership, you're like, well, no, because I can get all of this at Lifetime, and it's 2 stories and outdoor pools and bars and this and for 150, but Planet Fitness for 150. So there's this disconnect because the facility is built to sell the membership, right? Now, it doesn't mean in martial arts that our facility shouldn't be built to sell the program or the membership. And this is where I get really picky and finicky about how the school is presented and looks, because again, we don't need to make business harder for ourselves. So the disadvantage that we have as martial arts schools oftentimes is the appearance of what we have doesn't appear to be $150 to $200 per month from a visual perspective, right? Unlike the Lifetime Fitness that has this unbelievable visual perspective where it's $150 a month. So for us, it can be very difficult. It can be more difficult to sell somebody on or let them know the values and benefits of what we do, because they have to, it's not necessarily tangible, right? They can't necessarily see it and touch it. They've got to hear it. They've got to experience it. They got to see a difference in themselves if they're adults or in their child, right? So there's a lot going on there. But if you flip that, so it can be harder for us potentially to get new students because of that. Where a gym, it's much easier to get new people. However, a gym does not have the relationships with their customers or clients, the majority of them, right? They're not doing, the majority are not doing MIA calls and calling you when you're not there and concerned about you. So we have the advantage of having a more personal relationship with our people to retain them, whereas a gym has a much harder time to retain them. So a lot of times we think about, and we always, if I just did this, or the grass is always greener on the other side. Well, no, the grass is greener where you mow it, where you take care of it and you fertilize it and you water it and you do all the things. That's where the grass is greener. So you have to determine, where are you at, and is my school appearance where I need it to be to do the best possible job to get to show that value, number one. And number two, what is my delivery? And am I professional in my delivery? And how fast can I change somebody's life, right? Like or make them the best version of themselves. How fast can I get them the results that they're looking for? When a child is in an introductory lesson, as an example, whether that's one-on-one or they're in the office, when I can get them to stand attention and look at me for 10 seconds in the eyes without moving a muscle, and I ask the parent, is this how they listen when they're at home? And they're going to go, God, no, they don't. They just don't do that, right? Because they don't do that. They're on their iPad. So we create a result instantaneously. So these are some things to think about as we're moving into the new year, about creating value within your school. And are you making things easier, or are you making them more difficult for yourself? So it just was on that.
So by the way, as you're talking, right, I'm just envisioning people listening to this and they're tuning out because they're like, okay, of course, like, we know this. The points you're making is obvious, right? We understand that, right? The problem is we don't execute.
That's right.
We don't execute because if you're listening to this, why don't you have 500 students, right? And it's because we don't consistently execute equally with all of our customers. Now, the one thing that everybody wants, is they want to feel important. They also want to feel like they're progressing, which is why we have a rainbow assortment of belts, right? It's not about, culture, tradition, right? It's a different world today than it was 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, or whenever you want to talk about the origins of martial arts, or however far your tradition goes. It's a different world. And if you want people to stay in your school longer, And obviously, there is no debating. The longer somebody stays in a martial arts school and trains, the better they're going to become, or they'll be, as opposed to if they quit your martial arts school and they don't train in martial arts. So whether we like it or not, we need method of progression, consistent method of growth for a client. You also have to make them feel good and special and important. But you also have to teach whatever art that it is that you want to teach. Now, how much should you charge for classes? How do you all determine what you charge for classes? Do you look at other martial arts schools and just copy them? Are you under the merit of, I don't want to be the cheapest guy in town, I'm going to be the most expensive? That's fine, but then you also got to be the best, or create the most value, in my opinion, right? So how do you determine what you charge? And some of you provide more value than what you charge, and you're stuck. So another question you should ask yourself is, whenever you started your business, we started our business over 30 years ago. So what were we charging then compared to what we're charging now, compared to just inflation in general, and just, where prices have gone?
Yeah. So just go back, Metz, for a second, right? Like, was it, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I remember this, like $1 million in 85 is worth 3 million today. Was that you had said this a while back. Maybe you don't remember this, but
yeah,
I want to say it was in 85. I think it was in 1985, $1 million compared to today, that same million is worth 3 million. My point is, it's 3x. So are you charging 3x of what you charged? That's one way to look at it potentially, right? If those numbers are accurate. But are you charging
2.933? So just under 3 million. $1 million in 85 is equivalent in purchasing power to $2,933,000.
Right. So if you were charging $89 a month in 1985, right? I mean, are you charging whatever that is, $270 a month today? 267 bucks, I guess it would be today, right? That could be one way to look at it, right? But then you hear me say this all the time, but maybe, and by the way, things don't change. I mean, a banana is a banana, right? But a banana is more expensive today than it was 85 years ago. So if I say this next statement of, maybe you haven't grown and you've been doing the same 1 year of business for the last 30 years. And so maybe there isn't much of a value change other than the cost of living has gone up and inflation and things like that. Go ahead.
Check this out. So this is interesting, everybody. $170 a month today. So if you charge $169 or $170 a month, in 1992, 170 is worth $382 a month today. So 170, how do you reverse engineer that, right? So
so $100 today. Well, what's the differential? What was it? 175 and it's 380?
Yeah.
All right. So 3 divided by.
So $80 a month in 1992 is worth about $179 today. So who was paying $80 a month or less in 1992 for martial arts lessons? And if you were, well, that's the same as charging $180 a month today.
Right.
Now, how many of you are charging 180, but how much were you paying?
And then go back and well, why were you charging $80 a month at that time? What was the mentality at that point? So, how do you determine what you charge, right? Because you can close your eyes and, just pick a random number. You can throw a dart at a dartboard and have the different prices and whatever it lands on. You can do that. But I think, you have to look at number one, what everybody's doing. You have to compare it to other activities, right? So kids' dance classes, kids' whatever classes potentially, right? And then what you do. And then, by the way, how do you determine your price? Well, the market determines what you charge and what you can continue to charge, right? So if you're charging $100 a month, and you realize that you sign up 8 out of 10 people. You're like, well, dang, let me see what happens if I charge $110 a month or $10 more. Wow, 80% of people are still enrolling. What happens if I charge 120? And every 3 months or every quarter, you're raising your prices, and like the results aren't dropping. You can keep going, right? Like that's one way that you can think about that. But sometimes we get so stuck. Even for me, I remember we had a price point of $199 down and $139 a month. And because we give people options, right? There was an option where somebody could put $399 down and be $99 a month. And I remember going to $149 a month for one of our when we did the increase, and I'm like, oh my god, that just throws out of whack. Now it's like $107 if they want to. It's not 99. I'm like, I can't. How do I? And I just overthought it, right? And then since to 159 to 169, and it just hasn't mattered, right? So, but it's different for everybody. It's different based off of your values and what you're doing. And like you said, some of you may be overcharging, right? Some of you may be grossly undercharging. I've talked to people that when they enrolled, and they were enrolled for $139 a month, that also included a private lesson every month. Now, try and deliver on that when you've got 200 students and teach 200 private lessons every month. That's a tough, tall order, right?
There's a couple comments and a question here. Mr. Alvarez started in 1993. He signed up for $69 a month. The other thing is there were a lot of schools in the 90s and the 80s where people had other jobs too. They couldn't survive. I can tell you that I signed up in 1983 and I was paying more than $69 a month.
Yeah.
In 1983.
My Black Book Club program was like $3,500, I think, or $3,000. I don't remember.
Yeah. I mean, right. However, what's interesting is $75 a month in 92 is $169 today. So $75 is $169. Now, here's the other one. Do you just raise prices for new students or the entire student body? Well, Miss Melinda, it depends. If you have agreements or if you have programs that you sell and somebody's on a program, we would not raise their rate in the middle of a program. If you're month to month, then you have every right to give people notice and say, hey, I just want to let you know that as of March 1st, rates are going up. You don't have to do that, but you would be okay to do that if somebody's just on a month-to-month price. The only time that would not be okay is if you promise someone when they enrolled that they're locked in at a price and it'll never go up. It'll never increase. So it's not a black and white answer there if you raise prices for new students. Now, even if you do have programs or contracts or whatever you want to call it, if somebody's on a one-year program, then I would meet with them 90 days prior. And I would let them know that I would say, I don't know if you're aware, but rates have gone up a few months ago. But if you want to renew your program now, we can renew it for another 12 months or whatever your term is and keep you locked in the rate. However, please understand you don't have to do that. If you want to wait till the end of your program, you can. But if you decide to renew then, it will go to the new rate. Do you want to save some money and take advantage of being locked in and just renew early? And you can do it that way. So you give your customers some options here, right?
Well, yeah. And there's an unbelievable option if you're on month-to-month programs.
Yeah.
We're not going to go through that. No, I
No.
know. I just get excited. I get excited when I hear that because it helps so much.
So, excuse me, guys. Woo. The other thing is you got to don't look at what other people are doing. Look at the value you provide, and then what's going to move the needle for you and your family if you're a school owner, or to be able to pay for help or staff. So let's just say you have 100 students, right? If you have 100 students training and you increase your rate $5 a month for everybody, right? It's going up $5. $5 really isn't a big deal for the majority of people. However, 5 times 100, $500 a month, which is $6,000 a year, could be a very big deal to a martial arts school owner, because that that $6,000 just from a $5 increase is pure profitability. It's pure profit. There is no extra expense that comes with raising your rate $5, or you could go $10 and double that, right? So you want to look at things, but what's the reason you're raising rates to your consumer? What is your reason? And I believe you should have a reason why we're having a rate increase. We're bringing on more help. We want to take care of our assistant instructors or instructors more. We are getting new equipment in. We're going to be adding this. So my point is I just believe in justifying, not that you have to. You don't have to justify a rate increase. You could just say inflation, everything's more expensive, so I'm raising my rates. You can do that. I personally just like to have a little bit better reason behind it, because just because the world around me is going up doesn't mean that I'm all of a sudden providing more value. At the end of the day, it's about value. And you guys should all focus on how you can start providing a better service and value for your customers. Period. End of story. I mean, that's just it.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think, and I'd be curious, and I can't see the chat, but I'd be curious to see, what are people doing, right? Just some examples. Give one thing, put it in the chat box of what do you do to provide value? And I won't ask the second part of that question. What do you do that the school down the road doesn't do, right? Because some of you might put in life skills program as an example. Well, the school down the road does life skills, but that's okay. For right now, what do you do that provides value that you believe provides value to your school, right? And by the way, is that a service-based thing? Is it aesthetics, right? Is it the way that things look in the school? There's some schools, like I remember this back in the day, right? And I would tell you that, well, I won't give you my opinion about it, but back in the day, one of the big things in health clubs was put in daycares, because it would allow people to come in and work out and bring their kids and drop their kids off at in the daycare and go work out. As a matter of fact, one of the ads back when at the health club I worked at, it said drop 20 pounds in your first visit. It was a great ad, and people want to know how to do it. And they brought that, well, because we have daycare, you just drop off your child, you let 20 pounds go, right? That was their ad. They got a little bit of flack for that, but and then later on, a lot of the health clubs realized that they needed to be more boutique style, and that some of these frivolous things, like, for example, hot tubs and saunas and daycares, right? Though they're a great appeal for people, they just never get used, right? And so then they started cutting some of those things out. But today, there's martial arts schools that section off little areas in their school for daycare, right? And to me, like, that's not a value add for me, because that drives me crazy. And I just don't think that any type of daycare looks good. It's hard to have a daycare area that looks good, it looks clean, it looks pristine. That's me, right? Some of you that may have a really big adult following might say, hey, look, we run adult classes during the day, and we've got a 9 a.m. and an 11 o'clock in the morning. We have 40 adults in there, and we have 30 kids hanging out in daycare. Great. If that works for you, that's awesome, right? But this is where you have to determine what is it that you want your business to look like, which we say this about after school summer camp, not because it's a hit or a cut, because they do generate a lot of revenue. And when you have teams to run those, they can be great programs for your school, great services for your area. And those are the more need-based services than want-based services. People need the daycare, they need the summer care, they need the after-school care, right? But Metzger said this a lot of times, and to his point, is that why you got in the martial art business? Because you had this big dream of, buying or leasing vans and picking people up from school and bringing them to the martial arts school? Or are we doing that because our core program isn't where we want it? And maybe it's time that we focus on this core program to make it what we really want it, so we have a choice that we don't necessarily have to do those other things, right? If
Oh, we just lost him. Oh, he's ready to come back. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. Okay, while we wait for Mr. Shane. So Mr. Sal Convento, sir. So detailed character development program, smaller student to teacher ratio, many private lessons to students, monthly social events to promote social interaction. And Miss Melinda says we do parent night outs every month as well. But the parent night outs, remember, is just a fraction of your student base, right? We want to be doing things consistently all the time for all students. Tash, you're back. Don't know what happened, but it's good to have you.
I don't either. The point that I was trying to make is maybe it's time for you to really look at your core program, right? And then identify, well, why is it that program isn't where we want it? And at least have options later on to say, hey, look, no, we're going to keep the after school. We're going to keep the summer camp. Cool. That's cool if you want to do that, right? But sometimes we start chasing the dollars as opposed to focusing on why we really got into this business. And I think for most of us, because we love martial arts, right? It's not because we wanted to hand out juice boxes and goldfish, and that sounds like a knock, but I did it. I did that for 2 years, right? I did the after school program, I did summer camp, and I just don't like it, right? That's me, right? Other people do a great job with it, and that's awesome. But what is the value of your school? What are you doing? What are you doing to provide more value? And what can you do in your nighttime program? Because this should be an eye-opening experience. Great that you have a great after school and summer camp. But again, I'm not hitting on you guys and bashing on you guys or gals. But why is that so successful, but we cannot get our nighttime program where we want? Something's missing, right? Because that's a need versus a want. So I would be investigating, well, what's missing and how can we get this nighttime program to really where we want it? And again, make that choice and make the decision. If you want to keep both, great. I know you can certainly do that.
So look, very simple. Like here's something that we do in all of our schools. We brew fresh coffee and have it when you walk in the lobby area every day. Why? Well, I just think even if you're not a coffee drinker, something about the aroma of coffee kind of just relaxes the atmosphere. I think that's a huge thing with Starbucks. I think it was a huge thing with Barnes & Noble, the bookstore. There were people that would go to Barnes & Noble just because of the atmosphere, right? And I know people are stressed at the end of a long workday and they're coming in for a workout or they're bringing their kids. So the first thing I want them to feel is relaxed when they walk into our facility. That's just something simple. That's just simple. That still doesn't take the place of making everyone feel important necessarily from a one-on-one aspect. So it takes work and it takes practice. You got to know your customer. You got to know what they really want. You got to be checking in with them constantly. You got to be proactive, not reactive. Don't wait for people to walk into your office before you talk to them. You got to be proactive in greeting and talking to your customers every class, every day. I mean, this is customer service. That's what it is, right? So,
and that would be considered scent marketing, right? So whether that's a coffee scent or you're going to do like when you walk into a spa, as an example, you could have that as well, right? Either one, like what's going to calm you, or that scent is then associated with your business, like, you know, and that's what we do. There's a local axe throwing place, and they have a custom scent that when you walk in, and it's, I forget what it's a combo of, but it's a very distinct smell that you smell when you walk in, right? And that's great. Now, to Mr. Metzger's point, with the coffee, right? And you have that scent, well, there's something that you can do with that, right? Now you can offer that to a parent. You can offer to get them a cup of coffee if you want. There's nothing that I can offer, like, oh, do you smell how great it smells? I mean, I can't, there's nothing further that I can do to expand on that scent marketing, just as an example, right? So the coffee allows you to be able to do that as well. And by the way, that's not you might not be able to do that every single day, right? But just keeping the school, man. This is, I know you said it, like we know this and we do that. But then every time I look and I see people that are on Zooms and I'm looking at their schools and I can see ceiling tiles that are discolored from rain or whatever it is, light bulbs that are out. You can see garbages that don't have tops on, that are overflowing, stuff taped to the walls, trophies, things that have dust all over them. Like, listen, I mean, if the shoe fits, like, go back and figure it out, right? And I don't know what your school smells like when you walk in. So scent marketing, you may just, instead of, like Mr. Metzger said this, I don't know, 2 weeks ago at our owner's boot camp, sprinkling carpet fresh and vacuuming your carpet before class, you may have scent marketing going on because you're trying to cover the smell of feet. And maybe, just maybe, you don't even realize that it smells like feet or smells like must when you walk in. It's like people that, I've walked into houses where people have dogs, as an example, and they're clueless that their house even smells like dog because they've just been around it so much and they're acclimated to it. Is that you as a martial arts business owner? I don't know, right? And so these are all things to think about to make business easier and also potentially be able to charge more money. And there's always the anomalies. There's the anomaly of the lady that I took over her 1,170 some square foot facility to open a second location way back in the day. And it was the most filthy, disgusting place that you'd ever seen, from the ceiling tiles to the bathroom to everywhere. It was only 1,100 square feet, but she had 600 dance students, 600. So there's that flip side of it as well. You can get so caught up working in your business, right? I think I'm going to go with this topic later, but working in your business, right? That you get these blinders on and you feel so accomplished because you've gotten so busy doing all the busy work and everything looks good, feels good, smells good, everything around you. But we have zero time working on the business, which is generating new students. And how are we going to generate more revenue? How can we provide a better customer experience and customer service? Those types of things, the recruit, the retain, the revenue piece, that we don't do that because we're so busy over here. You have to have a good blend of both of those things.
Keep in mind, guys, most of you probably spend a lot of time, because if you talk to the industry, what's the number one retention tool? What's going to grow your school? Fun and exciting classes, fun and exciting classes. That'd be like a restaurant saying, all we got to do is serve great food. That's all we got to do is serve great food. But if you go to a restaurant that has great food and the service sucks, you're not going to keep going back. So yes, you do need to have great food, but you need to put as equal attention, just as much attention on service and customer service and value and experience as the great food. Same thing with your classes. How much time do you spend training yourself or your team or your assistants or your leadership people or whoever it is on building rapport with the customers on a one-on-one, not as a group, one-on-one? How much focus do you put on that? You do that, you're going to have a record year this year.
And by the way, we've asked this question, right? And it's a fair question. How many of you believe you teach good classes, right? And everybody's hand goes up. So let me just take this out of context for a second and imagine walking into 10 different restaurants and asking the restaurant owner, hey, do you guys serve good food? What do you think their response is going to be? Even if the food is horrible, they're going to be like, yeah, we serve great food. Of course we do. My point in saying that is you as a consumer can say, well, no, that food is horrible. This guy doesn't even understand he or she is serving bad food, right? Sometimes this happens with us as martial artists. How do you really know if you're teaching great classes, right? Well, it's usually by the number of students that you get and the students that you retain, right?
Right. And people will say, because my students tell me. Well, the students that stay tell you.
Yes.
Go ask all the students who've quit over the last 2 years how fun and exciting your classes were, right?
Right.
And even fun and exciting gets boring. So you got to be evolving. You got to be changing it. You got to be adapting. You got to keep it fresh. There's a lot here, guys, but at the end of the day, we'll leave you with this. Value first, then decide what you want to charge second. Some of you, though, are undercharging. Some of you are absolutely undercharging. I also believe some of you are overcharging because you heard somebody on the speaking circuit or somebody say you should be charging, at least $200, $250. Maybe. But if you want the truth, when I'm in town, I come by, I'll watch your classes, and I'll tell you, you're not charging enough. You're charging way too much for what I'm seeing here. I mean, it's just, you can't be your own judge, right? And you got to own it. I said this at the beginning, you got to own it. If you don't want to own it, and if all you want to do is defend all the time, defend yourself, then you're going to be stuck. You're going to be stuck. So how are you doing in your business, in your martial arts business, compared to where you want to be, right? And we could justify it. I don't want to make money in the business. Why not? Why wouldn't you? Why don't you want to make money and provide great quality and impact thousands of people in your community? Why wouldn't you want to do that? I don't understand that, right? But anyway, So
I think
go ahead.
the last thing, I'll just say this, and I think that's where the real fun lies in this business and in this industry is constantly. I mean, you guys, I think probably everyone preaches it to their students, but the whole CANI concept, right? Constant, never any improvement. And if all we did was just go in and I know my curriculum for this belt to this belt and this belt, and this is what we're going to teach, and this is what we're going to do again today, and this, but we're not focused on really everything else in the business because we all have challenges. Some might have recruitment challenges, some might have retention challenges, others have revenue challenges. Doesn't matter what it is. But for me, the fun part is diagnosing what is the challenge and then how can we fix it? And then by the way, hey, we're good, but we're not where we need to be right now. And how can we be better? What can we do to be better? That constant longing for growth and being better, that's where the fun in the business is for me. At least that's me, right? May not be everybody, but that's what I love about this business is we can always be doing a better job. Even if we're doing a great job, there's a way for us to be better, and we just need to try and figure it out. And we'll fail forward and do as much as we can and keep doing things and get better and better through the process.
There it is, everybody. We appreciate you guys. Happy New Year to everybody as we are into the new year. And, make some changes. Make some changes that's going to take your business up a few levels this year. Don't keep doing the same thing over and over and over. You got to adapt. You got to get out there. You got to learn. You got to get new ideas. So make it happen. Tass, I appreciate you.
Yes, I appreciate you too, my friend.
Thank you.
Hey, by the way, I saw on CNBC yesterday this Tournament of Champions commercial.
Really?
Happening down in your area. Yes. Yeah. It was on CNBC.
What is that?
The Golf Tournament of Champions. That's happening this weekend. Yeah. So I was like, did I just really see that? And I rewound. I'm like, sure enough, it was the LPGA Golf Tournament of Champions. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yes, that is cool. You will have fun, my friend.
Yes, yes, yes.
So,
all right, everybody.
All right, guys. Thank you for everything. We'll see everybody soon.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Take care.